Imagine this. You worked your whole life, 40 years, maybe more. You woke up before the sun. You drove in traffic. You sat in meetings that could have been emails. You missed your kids' soccer games. You ate lunch at your desk. You did everything they told you to do. And now, finally, you have a number. Maybe it is $500,000. Maybe it is $1 million. Maybe it is $2 million. Whatever it is, you saved it. You earned it. Every single dollar has a piece of your life attached to it. And now comes the question that keeps you awake at 3 in the morning. How long will it last? Because here is the terrifying truth that nobody explains clearly. The money that took you 40 years to build, you could destroy it in 10. Not because of a market crash. Not because of a scam. But because of one simple mistake, taking too many eggs from the goose. If nobody has ever explained what I am about to explain, hit subscribe, because this might be the most important 15 minutes of your financial life. Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a small village surrounded by wheat fields, there lived an old farmer. He had worked his entire life. His hands were rough. His back was bent. But he had one thing that made every neighbor jealous. A golden goose. Every single morning, this goose would lay 1 golden egg. Not 2, not 5, 1. And that 1 egg was enough to buy bread, pay the bills, keep the roof from leaking, and put a little aside for a rainy day. The farmer understood something that most people never learn. The goose was more valuable than the eggs. Read that again. The goose was more valuable than the eggs. Because as long as the goose was alive and healthy, the eggs would keep coming. Tomorrow, next month, next year, for the rest of his life. Now, this goose is not a fairy tale. This goose is your retirement savings. And the golden eggs? Those are your withdrawals. The money you take out every month to live on. Your rent. Your groceries. Your medicine. Your grandson's birthday gift. That trip to see your sister in Florida. The question is not how many eggs you have. The question is how many eggs you can take without killing the goose. And that, my friend, is the most important question in retirement. The old farmer had 2 children, a son and a daughter. When the farmer passed away, he left the goose to both of them equally. But he also left a note, a small piece of paper. It said, "Never take more than 1 egg per day. The goose will take care of you forever." The son read the note. He laughed. He crumpled it up and threw it in the fire. 1 egg a day? That is poverty. I have been poor my whole life watching my father live small. Now it is my turn. So the son started taking 2 eggs a day. The goose looked stressed but kept laying. Then he took 3. The goose started losing feathers. Its eyes got dull. It stopped eating. But the son did not care. He was living large. He bought a new truck. He ate at expensive restaurants. He took a cruise. By the 3rd year, the goose was barely alive. It was laying half an egg every other day. By the 5th year, the goose was dead. The son had nothing. No goose. No eggs. No savings. Just a pile of receipts and a cold, empty barn. This is what happens when you withdraw 6%, 7%, 8% from your retirement savings every year. The math does not care about your feelings. The math does not care about your plans. If you take too much, the goose dies. Let me give you real numbers because this matters. Say you retired with $1 million, and you decided to take out $70,000 a year. That is 7%. Sounds reasonable, right? $70,000 a year is not exactly living like a king. But here is what happens. In a good year, your investments might grow 6 or 7%. So you grew $70,000 but you also took out $70,000. You are treading water. You gained nothing. But in a bad year, the market drops 15%. Now your million just became $850,000. And you still took out $70,000. Now you are at $780,000. Next year, another bad year. The market drops 10%. Your 780 becomes 702. You take out 70 again. Now you are at 632. Do you see what is happening? The goose is shrinking. And every egg you take is a larger and larger percentage of a smaller and smaller goose. It is a death spiral. By year 12 or 13, the goose is dead. The money is gone. And you might still have 20 years of life ahead of you. This is not a scare tactic. This is arithmetic. Now, the daughter. She read the same note. She did not throw it in the fire. She pinned it to the wall above the barn door. Never take more than 1 egg per day. She did the math. If the goose lays roughly 1 egg per day, and she takes 1 egg per day, the goose stays exactly the same. It does not grow, but it does not shrink either. It lives. It keeps laying. She keeps eating. But she was smarter than that. She realized that some days the goose lays a little more than 1 egg. Some days, a little less. So she made a rule for herself. She would take slightly less than 1 egg per day. She would take about 4/5 of an egg. This way, the extra fifth would stay with the goose. The goose would slowly get healthier, fatter, stronger, and over time, it would start laying slightly bigger eggs. This, in the language of money, is the 4% rule. If this is making something click for you right now, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your mother, your father, your neighbor who just retired. They need this story. The 4% rule comes from a famous study done in the 1990s by 3 professors at Trinity University. They looked at every 30-year period in American stock market history going back to 1926. Every war, every crash, every depression, every boom. And they asked one question: what percentage could you withdraw every year and still have money left after 30 years? The answer? 4%. Sometimes a little more. Sometimes a little less. But 4% was the magic number. The golden ratio. The number that kept the goose alive through the Great Depression, through World War II, through the dot-com crash, through 2008. Let me make this real for you. If you have $500,000 saved, 4% means you can take out $20,000 a year. That is $1,667 a month. Not a fortune, but it is a foundation. If you have $750,000, 4% is $30,000 a year. $2,500 a month. If you have $1 million, 4% is $40,000 a year. $3,333 a month. If you have $2 million, 4% is $80,000 a year. $6,667 a month. Now, here is where it gets exciting. Because these numbers are just what you take from the goose. Most Americans will also receive Social Security. The average benefit right now is about $1,800 a month. If you delayed until 70, it could be $3,000 or more. If your spouse is also collecting, you could be looking at $5,000 to $7,000 a month from Social Security alone. Add that to your 4% withdrawal and suddenly the picture changes completely. $1 million nest egg plus Social Security for a couple could mean $8,000 to $10,000 a month. That is a comfortable retirement for most people in most places in this country. The goose is alive. The eggs keep coming. And you sleep at night. But here is something beautiful that most people miss entirely. The goose does not just survive at 4%. It often grows. Remember the daughter? She took less than 1 egg per day. That meant the goose kept a little for itself. Over time, the goose got bigger. It laid bigger eggs. And those bigger eggs meant the daughter could take a little more, not because she got greedy, but because the goose had grown. In investment terms, this is what happens when your portfolio grows faster than your withdrawal rate. If your investments average 7% returns and you only take out 4%, the remaining 3% stays invested. It compounds, year after year. A $1 million portfolio, with 4% withdrawals adjusted for inflation and average market returns, does not just survive for 30 years. In most historical scenarios, it actually doubled or tripled in value by the end. You read that correctly. You spent from it for 30 years and ended up with more money than you started with. The goose did not just survive. It thrived. This is the power of giving the goose room to breathe. You do not need to take everything. You just need to take enough. Now, I would not be honest with you if I pretended everything was always this simple. Because geese get sick. And markets crash. The most dangerous time for your goose is the first 5 years of retirement. Not because 5 years is special, but because of something called the order of bad luck. Imagine 2 farmers. Both have identical geese. Both take 4%. Farmer A retires in a good year. The goose is healthy. Eggs are plentiful. The market goes up 10% in year 1. He takes his 4%. The goose barely notices. Farmer B retires in a bad year. A storm hits. The crops fail. The market drops 25% in year 1. He still takes his 4%. But 4% of a wounded goose is devastating. The goose now has to recover from both the storm and the missing eggs. Same goose. Same rule. Completely different outcomes. Just because of timing. This is why the smartest retirees do something very specific. They keep a separate pile of grain, enough to feed themselves for 2 or 3 years. That has nothing to do with the goose. If a storm comes, they eat from the grain pile. They leave the goose alone. They let it heal. In money terms, this means keeping 2 to 3 years of living expenses in cash or very safe, stable investments. Not in stocks. Not in anything that can drop 30% overnight. Just sitting there, boring, safe, waiting. If the market crashes in year 1 of your retirement, you do not sell a single share. You live off the grain pile. You wait. The goose recovers. History says it always has. The people who go broke in retirement are not the ones who face bad markets. Everyone faces bad markets eventually. The ones who go broke are the ones who panic and sell during bad markets. They slaughter the goose when it is sick instead of letting it heal. There is one more part of this story that I need to tell you. And it might be the most important part of all. Remember the farmer's note? Never take more than 1 egg per day. That note was not just about math. It was about something deeper. It was about the relationship between patience and freedom. The son wanted freedom right now. He wanted the big truck, the fancy dinner, the cruise. And he got it. For 3 years. Then he had nothing. The daughter wanted freedom forever. She wanted to know that no matter what happened, a medical bill, a broken furnace, a grandchild who needed help, she could handle it. She could write the check. She could say yes. That is what the 4% rule really gives you. Not a budget. Not a restriction. A permission slip. Permission to spend without guilt. Permission to give without fear. Permission to live without counting every dollar at midnight. I have seen too many people reach retirement with enough money to live beautifully, and then spend the next 20 years terrified of touching it. They eat cheap food. They skip the family vacation. They say no to things that would have made their life rich, not because they cannot afford it, but because they are afraid the goose will die. The 4% rule is the cure for that fear. It is the math that says, you are going to be okay. Take the trip. Fix the roof. Buy the birthday gift. The goose can handle it. And if a storm comes, you have your grain pile. You wait. The goose heals. Life goes on. That farmer's note was never about eggs. It was about trust. Trusting the system you built. Trusting the math you studied. Trusting yourself to be patient when the world gets loud. Your money is your goose. You raised it. You fed it. You protected it for 40 years. Now it is time to let it take care of you. Share this video with someone you love. Someone who is sitting up at night wondering if their money will last. Send them this story. It might change everything for them. And if you want to learn how the smartest retirees organize their money into 3 separate piles, so they never have to touch the goose during a storm, that is exactly what the next video is about. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Thank you for being here. I will see you at the fortress.